compassion, a love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of the Savior, the hope of nations. Savior.
This is Chariot.
This is Chariot TV. Good evenings, baby. We are live on Chariot TV on Straight Talk. Couldn't say, maybe then in media now. Straight Talk and a virtual grass. Straight Talk, and we have been discussing the book of Daniel and visions for how long? Long time. Now, so about Chariot TV. So, but so subscribe to channel now, but hit it on the channel. Search us from YouTube and hit the subscription button, and I say hit the notification bell and send a call live. You'll be notified. Now, so you are joining us. If you are watching us from Facebook, let us know where you are watching us from. We'll be happy to say a better one. It's been a long break, long break, but finally, we are hitting the ground running. We just want to complete the book of Daniel. Na yetimishe and yomafufro na yeka wasem. A few things maybe I have to draw in. So I want to see how we are trying to work. We are warming up on Chariot TV. Send a bit to me outline our full programs. Yashe. Na kaya you will clearly see us warming up very soon because of one or two things here. We are not set yet. Be watching out for the space. But more than Sudi Chariot TV home come actually afofro send a bit me joining in. Now I'm also subscribe more subscribe no more than so na send a down just hit the subscription button and I say hit the share button. Let's share my for and you can help by sharing at click share button no, then you add at highlight or at followers at highlight or at followers. Be notified or more war and our friends you know say there's an interesting program that you are interested in and they should be interested in. Now, Boama, Senebea, your call live almost beat me and Yaquania, a chase you to accept panel. Now, on meeting the Omoho, Ama Ebrade, or Sapan. So there's no better, greater evangelism than even easy way of evangelizing than helping share videos of one more and Yakupa Juma. Now, Omujan of Krenos to people, Senebea almost beating me. So we are back and welcome you back on Chariot TV. But more than you who baby are if you drop your comment in the comment section. It's a live show, so you drop a comment in the comment section. I'll be notified. Now me to know who say okay, baby are if you be who every kind. And we are still studying. We are still trying to wrap up the book of Daniel and vision. And then we'll go back as far back as chapter 1 and try to go through. If you pick up few things a bit me a boy I refresh your journey. Near my yes young so much send a bit me. I pick it up from there and move on with it. Since as always no me guest Bashadrak. Bashadrak what time in come Mwajo?
John Major so now
oh me hoye. No yeah me hoye.
Abom de we say abom de akade.
Yeah, Kadiaka no so say beba. Go for Omay must say beba there be pick it. You see a picking so a be a picking so near who. Yeah, mo say Eja Major Isaac Major Abegum. A long time happy to see you guys. My biblical teachers, Mo say Isaac Major. You can let us know where you are watching us from. Yeah, wasumwa kwesi ponso wachiao me kanisa yeah so let's go right into the issue. We started with the background to the book of Daniel and it's interesting say maybe you point out the relevance of trying to study the background of a book before you look at the book itself. You see you pick your Bible like my Bible here. New American Standard Bible. You pick it up, let's say you pick up Genesis, European Genesis. it just starts Genesis chapter 1, then it starts going, plenty things there. It doesn't give you background materials. But some people may ask, why do we need to worry ahead on background material? But on the book of Daniel, no, in our section, the first 2 episodes, no, we spent 2 sections, roughly like 2 hours, trying to nail down what is the background of the book of Daniel. What is the relevance of studying background in a book?
That's it. My main fact is na me na enuano mo hwe Charo TV ase bebre na yemfa asedan so ma Onyankopon se afi wode ahya ase fefefe na nema ekoso eba ye na kwan mu fefefe. It is interesting to me and a privilege enuano mo mami emphasize konye na me na mo ase. A privilege to me say minya kwan na minimo ebetena Bible ho na ye che Onyankopon asem no. It is not because say bia minim Bible ma na minim ade ama debi. I think say eye adom eno Onyankopon de adom me say mitime sua na minimo aba bi che. It is really important to me say medamo ase say empo ye program bi say amunya daje na mbehwe na mo share to a bigger audience. Joe say you can't background study of a book. One way I'll be doing say, oh, book in a Bible never hold on me and kind and say we will be what's a now James you make a lot of mistakes in your studies because a background of, you see, Professor Vika said, will say a book that is well introduced is 90% taught well. The attorney said, so what me introduce a book very well. Nipan awobetie the old book no introduction no so we train year open up for the person to be able to see what we are about to study. And managing enso etimi esi ade no so yie na ma adesua na oni besua no wanya emu entiase. A lot of people take books and the contents of the book for granted, you know. They end up teaching something book now more kind of encounter once. Joe, the Bible is just as any other book, and in studying any other book, no, you need to get the background correct. You need to get it right. So when your background not correct, and then ever boama adie biara all can one seminal. One will say, oh, okay, and yeah, and introduction or can't wait. So the introduction kind of open you up to whatever the person is going to talk about. Joe, let's take for example, sorry now could see sermon. Not sermon, no preacher the bit through obi and no say point number 1. No, I start take kasa. Point number 2, no, I start take kasa. You ask yourself, say, what is that? What is he doing? Because the person did not give you introduction. So introduction of a book, no, say it gives you the entire studies, you know, very well. Now, Joe, there is a book to Bible books, like an introductory book to Bible books, written by one man called Jason, and he's one of the best people I mean, even in denominations, you know, why introduce you various books. So we will be our Bible student. Bible here. You have such books to study to be able to tell us, okay, the reason why Daniel the reason why Troy, it is because or my young baby. So introduction is very, very important. Now, Joe, saying introduction and Kaubia from the past, you will not be able to understand, say the book of Daniel Krano. Chapters now are arranged, yes, Sana. event no happen yet. Okay, you say chapter 1 up to chapter 4 no. It did so chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. But ufri chapter 4 so we jump say chapter 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And son about back to chapter 5 and say and 6.
6, yeah.
Ufri chapter 5 and 6, yeah. And son back chapter 9. Now the chapter 10 and 12.
11 and 12.
It is a unyas our background we are. Then that is where you go and read chapter 5. No, I catch you say Belshazzar Yekuno. Ubedru chapter 7. I know I catch you say in the first year of King Belshazzar. No, na say Papa Yekuno. You see, so the background information is going to then give you how to be able to understand the way the book works. And, you know, that is why introduction is extremely important. And if you're able to understand it, Joe, you have gone a long way to understand the book.
But that's it. We have gone a long way to understand the book. Safin was joining us. We are live on Chariot TV, on Straight Talk. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook as well. Just hit the like button. Let us share, and you can comment and let us see where you are watching us from. I mean, read some few comments. I'll drop it in. We are live, so there are live comments that are tripping in. Ejedu, I say watching live from New Edubias. Good evening, Brendan. Ejedu, Mr. Onyom no me da so kai, but the akwa ne say there be ABC between one time ABC between no na me ya de bia me drive. I can't na me ntimi nye it me da so kai fache me ba me che na che wona fi e de na David me be send it me kai pa enye bo apayo no eja Richard so is watching us live from Henderson Church of Christ NC eja Richard Michelle afiaso ama ezi wa afufum etimiente wonka afele so a ye nwa no mo abrochi no ma sene iska na ese dey abo ho bia kaka etimiente wonka yete wonka che yeah. So let's yanko the book no mu we look after looking at the introduction. We spent 2 sessions dealing with introductory matters, but after looking at the introduction we veered into the chapter 1 of the text. You realize that you're chapter 1, and we saw the background. Daniel ended up in Babylon in chapter 1, and they wanting to change his language. They wanted to they teaching them language, and I want to change their culture and trying to indoctrinate them with Babylonian ideas. Chapter 1, all those things were seen in chapter 1. And a bit of things I bit me through maybe send a baby to me.
Yeah, also in chapter 1, no, the Daniel is telling us na ono mo fie Nebuchadnezzar and Crawford ever found called Babylon. Now, Joe, we will be a winning Bible geography. When him said Babylon was in the land of Mesopotamia. Yeah, because the land of Mesopotamia, we're talking about the land between 2 rivers. There was the river Tigris and there was the river Euphrates. So rivers no Israel Shrosa and they from Iraq and Iran. So it's the river Tigris and the river Euphrates. Now what happened is Nebuchadnezzar almost neighbors to Assyria for 80 in the years before Nebuchadnezzar in Nuano and also the neighbors Assyria for had come to Israel, the northern kingdom, other form and Kwasumu. And Nyankopon Kanchiro say he will punish them for Subaya no Mudanedi. In fact, Jonah ekokasa chero after 150 years almost went back to the same life. Nahum will go and preach to them, and Nahum will tell them, say, prepare to meet thy God. So what is our phrase in that? And our statement in that. That is when Nahum was telling them, say, hey, God is coming and he's going to judge you and punish you. How did God do it? God brought Babylon from Arcadia, and I said Chaldeans, the Chaldeans, and I Chaldeans, so then Chaldeans, and then they team up with Media for. You saw Media for, and later on the Babylonians, Medians and Persians, the Babylonians teamed up with the Medians and overthrew Assyria for them. It overthrew Assyria for them. Then they wanted to expand their territories. So they came down from the top to the down to where Israel for them. And when they went to Israel for them, they went to Jerusalem. Why? Because the northern kingdom had already been taken captive by the Assyrians. Northern kingdom was no longer in existence. But what I say, northern kingdom nini hobio. So it was left with the southern kingdom, Jerusalem. Omuba say, Omuba be take you over no. Unyankopon allowed them to take over, and so the Babylonians took over the southern kingdom, and Omode Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Nkwasumu. So they took them all the way to the land of Mesopotamia, which is Babylon. Now, Joe Omodomu Korea, the answer, you know what they did? They came back the third time, and almost have a far Ibisa Koye. The third, the first, the second, the third. The second time no mobile, and conform Domu Koye Ezekiel and in the team. Ezekiel and Crawford from Domu Koye. The third time, Joe, the third time no mobile, no media bufone by. It's on the Bubu temple, no, and on the Jatumu and Omukoy. So that is why you read about Ezra and Nehemiah coming back to build your furnace and the temple and the walls of Jerusalem. Patriarch said, the book of Daniel is somewhere in between the time where Jeremiah prophesied na Nebuchadnezzar be form konkwasumu. Any Ezra open Daniel baby I didn't be sure that is where you put him. What I say, because they went into captivity and they stayed there. Now, Joe, chapter 1 is telling us that Nebuchadnezzar be form konkwasumu. He did something. He tried to put them into monoculture so that young people know don't work on it. Before I forget, so we will be or expanded with territory and I walk conquer another nation. Bacho and Kokra Embrewa any Mranti and Mabawa. How many other form more conquersum?
Over from Rantiano. Someone a bit of my Juma. I'm not a bit of my Juma in Passum. Say, I have a bit of or more idea we are talking about slaves. They were not 90 years, 80.
Yes. Very strong people. Joseph, we will be our person who the picture of what we're talking about. That's why she movie a friend Apocalypto. So I Apocalypto, but I can be this.
Mente, Matida, but Menshera. Naka, no, that's why be. On so
Mr. Make a real Apocalypto. Now, Apocalypto movie, when they came all the way to the land of Ayesa and Crawford to take them into captivity, they took those who were strong. They did not take no, they wanted young and strong and energetic people. And that's exactly what happened to the children of Israel for Edom call a kwasum. So Daniel is telling us, say, Yebefo mo kwasum. Nebuchadnezzar's strategy was to make sure said he integrates Sankrofono Mabano into Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom no, by teaching them their language, by giving them new names, by giving them new food, Babylonians for the food, so that the people will not think of going back or will not kind of become strangers forever. So how do we integrate them into the society? And that's exactly what happened at Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel. Until Daniel chapter 1 is giving us that picture. Daniel chapter 2 is telling us how Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And the dream, Daniel Churchill in Moem say, I can't want some detail.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, conclusion in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel, and say God is about to set up a kingdom. So God is about to set up a kingdom, yet before the kingdom is established, he is telling you the things that are going to happen before God's kingdom is established. Say what in the book of Daniel say, I'll bet church I say. What did I can say?
Yeah.
So you'll be understanding the book of Daniel. You understand why we talk so much about the church, because the whole purpose. Number 7, Daniel chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel chapter 2. The verse verse 44. Ebabesi your friend is saying 45 no.
Verse 44 no. Eba 45 no. Or say
but just 33. Yes, 44 to 45. I'll say.
In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left for other people. It will crash.
In the days of these kings, man, from the top down, one mentions that there are 4 kingdoms that are coming. And in the 4th kingdom, there are going to be different kind of kings. So God is giving you a period, a time frame, and the first one is Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. The second one is your friend is saying the Medo-Persian kingdom. And then the third will be the Greece Empire. And the 4th one the Roman Empire. And Daniel is telling us that in the days of the kings of the 4th kingdom, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom.
In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crash and put to an end all these kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. In as much as you saw that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and it crashed the iron, the bronze and the silver, the clay and the silver and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will happen in the future. So the dream is true, and this interpretation is trustworthy.
It's Daniel. Daniel made it so clear. The statement not make you honor. Say, your friend saying, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass. So the whole idea of what Nebuchadnezzar saw is to tell him what is going to come. Is it not a calendar issue? This is a clear calendar issue. So God is telling you, say, look at the way, the sequence of events, how they are going to play out. It's, the entire book of Daniel is to give us a picture of how God is going to establish his church, his kingdom. In chapter 4 now, chapter 3, Now amount how Nebuchadnezzar ebe pompous. Chapter 3, chapter 4, how Nebuchadnezzar became pompous and wanted people to serve him, even in his kingdom. But what I say, serve in his kingdom. Chapter 5 will tell you how Nebuchadnezzar Nana will do something wrong. Ebema na ko yibekunu na kingdom no akodi Babylon for no.
Okay. So let's go back. But I think you skipped a chapter. So chapter 1, I discuss about the quite fast called captivity. Chapter 2 discusses the church, the kingdom of God that will be established. So it gives a timetable or a scheme of how those kingdoms will show up and how what will happen. Chapter 3, we didn't talk much about. We didn't talk about it.
Chapter 3, and Nebuchadnezzar became pompous, or try to obey you, Hunia, or per se, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Mon Cotton Soria, or may some your don't call Ujimu. Chapter 4, when the pompous Nano led him to become like an animal.
So it's chapter 4 where we saw Nebuchadnezzar's second vision.
Yes.
Yeah, you saw Nebuchadnezzar's second dream, I should put it. Second dream.
The second
where
dream.
Daniel has to give an interpretation. Say the tree now and those things came up like that.
Yes.
And you have reminded, you are reminded. So the book is not chronological, it's not in 4 chapters. So it's in chapter 5 that we see the end of the Babylonian kingdom. But so already other chapters talks about the Babylonian kingdom, which will show you that chapter 5 is the right and skips
forward. I mean, I think what you're trying to say is chapter 5 is the end of the Babylonian kingdom. But
yes.
Chapter 7 and 8 talks about the Babylonian kingdom, which means that you have to bring the chapter 7 and 8 forward before you go to chapter 5, because chapter 5 is the end of it. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So in chapter 5 where we saw Nebuchadnezzar and Belteshazzar. Is it Belshazzar rather, not Belteshazzar? Belshazzar being killed by the Medes and the Persian, Darius taking over his kingdom.
Yes, sir.
And if you want to call chapter 6, we see a different case altogether. Chapter 6 and chapter 7 shift to the Medes and the Persians, their era, and it spoke about things that Daniel, and it's in chapter 6 where Daniel has to end up in the famous lion's den. I never told that
that is at the time when Medians and Persians had taken over.
Yeah.
At that time they are taking over, and so omu taking over no any position at Daniel nya and unya account for and omu try say omu be creating problem for him, and then it ended up being he being in a lion's den. And that time the king that was reigning, Darius, the Median king. But what I say, and then we come to chapter chapter 7 and 8. Yeah, come on.
Chapter 7 and 8, it discusses those visions.
Chapter 7 and 8. And no when the kingdom of God is going to be established. What I say? Also, chapter 2 no catch us God is going to establish his kingdom. But in chapter 7, then it tells you, say, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom no ebe. And so these are the kingdoms that are coming to take over. So chapter 7 outlines all the kingdoms that are going to take over. Right? Chapter 7 no beka Medo-Persia for one. No, I can't the the Grecian Empire one. No, I can't the 4th kingdom one. Oh, chapter 7, the verse 12 to 14. It is okay. chapter 7, verse 12 to 14.
So verse 12 to 14. I'll say, and as for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time.
The passage is telling us the beast, in fact, the beast represent the kingdom. In fact, you cut down that the beast, verse 23, say the beast they represent the various kingdoms. They represent the various kingdoms. And the text is telling you, say, these kingdoms will come to an end. When these kingdoms come to an end, at the time when air coming to an end, this is what is going to happen. The verse 13 and 14.
Okay, the verse 13 will say, I kept looking in the night vision, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was climbing, and he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, and kingdom, and that all people, nations, and men of every language mighty serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom is the one that will not be destroyed.
The God of heaven is telling us, say, after these kingdoms, God is going to establish a kingdom, and the kingdom will be given to his son, and the son, after getting hold of the kingdom, will then give it to the world. So I say, and I'll say, the kingdom will last forever. In other words, all the other kingdoms now, beasts, representing, are going to end. But on your the establishment will last forever. So then the question comes, when is that going to happen? Two things, and Daniel Edemae for an answer. And one is chapter 9, and the other is chapter 10. Two things. Chapter 9 will tell you, say, when is that kingdom going to happen? When the people of Israel go back to their land, when they return to their land and give birth to the Son of God, Jesus, then he will come and establish the kingdom. It's good. The entire book of chapter 9 is giving us an idea of how Jesus will come, how the children of Israel will return to their land at Palestine, from Babylon to Palestine, and how they will give birth to who? To your friend is saying, the Son, the Son of God, for him to establish the kingdom. And then after he has established the kingdom, then the kingdom will start reigning. In chapter 10 of the book of Daniel is to tell you how the Medians and the Persians will fight, and their kingdom will come to an end for God's kingdom to later on reign. This is a picture that is given by Daniel. Said Jesus is going to be born, he is going to be killed, his kingdom will be established, and it will spread out throughout the world. That is what chapter 9 of the book of Daniel is telling you. But interestingly, Daniel writes in apocalyptic language. He said, we use numbers, symbols, and certain words to describe asemna all kind of. It is a honor. Now, last time you see, and me catch you say, people have twisted the thing so much. Say, I'm learning the book of Daniel. I'm a lot of people. But if you take your time to read it, you see, say, it is just telling you what God is about to do in the future and how he's going to do it. What God is going to do and how he's going to do it. Joe, that is what we see in chapter 9. 9. 18, chapter 10. Esther here. Then it's telling you the visioner Daniel no ehui with regards to how the Medians and the Persians, are going to work to overtake the kingdom. What I say, it is what we are going to read in Daniel chapter 10. Daniel no vision at the time when the Medians and the Persians, are taking over the kingdom. It's meaning some person will be some questions be answered.
Let me pick up some comments that are dropping in. We are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube as well. We'll drop your comment in the comment section. I do near camera. I mean, kinds of a few comments that I've dropped in. And I can read the comment as well. We are from Gifty Biscuit also watching live from Tema Comtiate. We are from Yemame Joyce Donko also watching live from Accra, Tantra Hill. Good job to you all. Who say a champion Francis so at say followers at highlight. Send a catch up of one so share video no particularly just click share button and now they are too so what the art in our phone so you just search for the key art the inner circle transition about art ne followers ne beba and I say never will be beba you select followers it's about art ne be one and you select highlights then before you share it and about 195 or more share war send a bear on meeting and so I join you or more phone to notify them send a bear they'll get interested in this is the only way we can reach billions and billions of people. To be frank with you, we contemplate about how to reach the world on so many things. For instance, there are many people that can't English language. We can reach using our English language. For instance, in Ghana here, there are a lot of people who understand the context of or their work can say. So let's utilize opportunity I have for the send a nipa intimi on ancient and compassion. And I intimi share on personally. You bet me an video so etimi yesu Christo asem Panama. Na say we are so much in Panama. On sweating Abinyan Kwam on class. So let's utilize that by helping us share the content. Just hit share button and copy the link and share it. You can copy the link and post it on WhatsApp platforms and tell friends. Send on my with me. Brethren, I will ready to say to me. I'm video rako Anthony Akwuase Anthony say good evening brethren watching live from Israel Anthony Echiao Mojidi is Israel 82 year no say Anthony so aba Kevin Kwame Appian too Anthony aba on so share ama edase and I know who say papa Isaac Mejan so the aba let me see. All the other kingdoms will fade, but the kingdom of the Son will last forever, which is His church. You made this Daniel book so enjoyable and understandable. Thank you, Charity. Friends, take note of the Bible quotations, please. Okay. As major and the futu, the man. We are interested to say yes to Christ as in Panabako. In Tubaswa, Daniel can. There's no way of learning a book without you reading it yourself. You can go and buy books, now package them. And we can talk to you about the books, but there's no way of learning a book without you reading the book yourself. So you encourage you to say, now you verse by verse, now you church and say, also with me, follow by also with me, read the book yourself, so you glean the content of the book and be able to help also others. And so, we are still on the book of Daniel. And we are just recapping things that we have talked about and things that we have studied on the book chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we have done even 9 and 10. We did a session of 10 and but we went, so we pick up from 10 in particular. Now, from there, hopefully next week, and then in person, you best spend the time going new materials. A new year in the first class, we do a recap. We don't want to add new materials to it. In this own kind, you sit down roughly within 2 hours, send a bit minute time, actually movie for long hours. And you just sit down with the book of Daniel in hand and try reading the content. For some few minutes, you'll appreciate the content of the book. And come alive to you. and you'll be able to appreciate new my can ye. Send a bear also to be to me. I church for almost 100. But say, Patrick K. I've been so I'll be them. I was watching us live from Asante, the quiet, Jabi, my auntie wonka, catch it, me auntie wonka. They say we are live on so now you say a Jumana near Bono. But quickly, I don't know whether you should go back and pick up lesson. I just want one lesson from you. Maybe carry there, maybe I'll count there. Then you keep going. So from the book chapter 1 per se, the lesson I get from chapter 1, and it says, it's not just wrong to be different. You see, Daniel and his friends were different from all people. All the people they were different. And I pick it up from there. Lesson I'm a Daniel chapter 1. They say, well, it's not necessarily wrong. Of course, sometimes being different is different. I didn't know the cranny, but I was you're different. You understand it. That is I've said, but the Christian life poses that you be in a minority, and as such, you will be different. I don't know which lesson you pick up from chapter 1. So
well, Joe, chapter 1, lesson I'm a picky, and I say sometimes your innocency, meaning if there's an English word like that, but I think so. You being innocent, does not mean say things will not affect you. Okay. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. No. You realize say the only innocent from the behavior of the kings of Israel, yet the conduct of the people of Israel, papa no conduct no enunti emo Onyankopon to omo so resom do mbekọ nkwaso mu no affect omo. Yenye extremely careful kakra say till we go through certain crisis in life yan conclude say nipa no money awa yenti na onya asotwe. Sometimes it's just as what? As a result of obiadia oye and a wunya esu consequences. And I'm going to tell you two things. I will say our passage. One, say so chapter 1 verse 1 now say in the year of King correct. In the year of King Joachim, God gave Israel or the city of Jerusalem into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. It's the conduct and the behavior of the parents and the elderly people of the Jews, affected these young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Number two, when the astrologers and those people with power and all that in chapter 2 try say me explaining the dream of Nebuchadnezzar and then or see gather all the wise men and if Daniel, God has not revealed the dream to Daniel, and Daniel and his people could have been not killed. It is sometimes people face troubles and problems, not because of the sins they have committed, but simply because of and that for me is something we need to take a serious note of, so that we don't always conclude say it will be born and but Joe, the consequences of other people's sin can come on an innocent person. That is something we need to note in chapter 1 and then also even in chapter 2.
Yeah, me chapter 2 no say me chapter 2 now the lessons I picked up which I want to share, and it's God knows the future. You see, it might sound simplistic, but
yeah,
that is depth, in depth, in the sense that I mean to have a friend who can tell you what's happening in the future. Wonderful. We all want people like that. We want people who can know what's going to happen, who will tell what's going to happen. But chapter 2 tells us that God knows today. Unim the besi 1,000 years. Say we are sincere. Yeah. We are saying unim the besi. Back. The SC. He has those things all at his purview, and that's such a friend is worth following or worth having as a companion, because so be who will be or access to what has happened in human history. No, too far. He stands best chance of trying to advise you clearly what you're not supposed to do. So I pick it up from chapter 2. Say God knows the future. He knows it. He knows the future, he knows the past, and he knows what is happening in the present. And that is something I pick up when I read chapter 2. I don't know whether you add something to chapter 2, then we move
what
on.
I also want to add to what you have said, and I say, chapter 2 tells us that God is a prayer answering God. God is a prayer answering God. When Daniel and his friends were asked, said, were told, not asked, were told, says someone to me and Diana said that they're going to be killed. No. Look at what Daniel said. Daniel pleaded, said, please, let us go and give us time. And what did they do? He prayed. The Bible says that Daniel and his people went to their homes and they fasted and they prayed. At the end of the day, verse 19 of chapter 2 say, Daniel blessed the God of heaven. What must say? Why? Because he has revealed the dream to him. God is a prayer answering God. It is sometimes when you are going through troubles, and when you are in a dire need of something, when you are in tribulation, when you are in a serious trouble and difficulty, do you know, say you can't even pray? Yeah. Because it's like, you are so overwhelmed with your troubles and your problems. But I want to admonish our people, say, lesson that today you can apply to your lives from chapter 2. He said, even in those difficult times, try and say a prayer, and God will answer you. God is a prayer answering God.
Yeah, but that's it. On chapter 3, you are picking up lessons. On chapter 3, when I read the chapter 3, one of the things I pick up and I said, trust in God. You remember the wise man of the Old Testament in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5. And yet I said, trust God with all your heart and lean on not to your understanding.
Not on your understanding.
Oh, for what you know, and it might be a more, I mean, we just quote it, but it's truth. It's a correct imudru say for who to Unyankopon so. And he says something which sometimes we think about it as see or say, in all your ways, acknowledge him.
Acknowledge him.
The
word acknowledge, as a Bermuhokaka.
I look at a remember example. No, all that well, yeah. Acknowledgement. Was a chubuka acknowledgement in chassis. Now about a band, son, near my ever church in our we do preface and things like that in a section before the book and tell or more boy any other day and Sakwan actual book the content. In other words, Nakopon any the bia who ye bia no the kind catcher. The kind then I say the kind a suit. My name yan son or one was a my yes ID, and that is something that I pick up from chapter 3 with Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their undying faith, their firm conviction and trust in God that even if things are not working out well, God can save them from the furnace, the furnace, and that will solve the problem. I don't know whether you have any other lesson.
Lesson, I'm going to pick it from there, and it said, chapter 3, the verse 17, this is what he said. If that is the case, Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. Now verse 18 says, but if not, let it be known to you. And I like the way we put two words together to the king. Let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, or nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is saying, Nane, we will not serve our God. We trust in the God. To say that okay, we trust in God. But even if the God that we have put our trust in does not even deliver us, even if he doesn't come to our rescue, we will not stop trusting him. It's Joe. The lesson I picked from here, and they say, when things are getting tougher, even at the time we expect to say, baby, I was doing the nka, what drew pempenso so nyankopon bam, not we ignore. Even if you think God has ignored you, and I'm using my words carefully, I'm saying that even if you think, because I know that God will not forsake us, because he has made a promise. I will never leave you, neither will I forsake you. I trust that. But Joe, even if you think or you feel that God has rejected you, don't stop trusting in him. Because the point is, and it said, if you don't trust in God, why do you never trust him? Okay, if God has even forsaken you, let's assume that he has. If he has forsaken you, what other help are you going to get? And whom do you think is going to help you? It's Joe. I think we need to grow to in our faith to the point where we will see even if our God will forsake us, even if he will not come to our rescue, we will not stop trusting him. We will die trusting him. He is faithful. And Joe, if it is his way or say we will die and go and meet him, because that's where it is rather a bad price. You bet lose your trust in him. Na you. Na yenya som fasobia. I think even if you think God is not coming to your rescue, don't stop trusting him, Joe.
Don't stop trusting him. As my Ken Kaime, the book of Acts, I think chapter 21 or 22, when Paul was going to Jerusalem, and Agabus met him and said that, well, this guy, after Okoya, and when Agabus breaking up that prophecy in the front of the congregation, they all started weeping and they begged Paul, don't go. When I read it, I said, the congregation is begging Paul, don't go. But Paul, as some can say, and yet, and yet, Chimpo, I know, but Chimmy, I may have, but so be it. And look at the camp who say, yeah, 1 year to like you 2 no 4 1 fan. You Jan Kwame. I mean, quite interesting scenario that happened. Even with all the brethren trying to convince Paul that, well, at the say you are facing doom in Jerusalem. You bet you. Why do you want to worry your head? But Paul said, no, I'm prepared. Not just my arrest. Say, but say they try convincing him, but he still stood firm. Thank you for that message on that. On chapter 4, no. Well, chapter 4, it's it's captured even in a book in the Bible. By book, I mean one book in the Bible deals extensively with it. Pride goes before destruction.
Before the fall. Yes.
And in the Old Testament, there's a little book, 1 chapter book in the Old Testament called Obadiah. I encourage you to say the person someone should just get that book and try reading it.
Yeah, 5 minutes you finish reading the book.
Yeah, 5 minutes you finish reading the book, and clearly that book is a masterpiece of trying to show you. I
love Obadiah.
Yeah,
I think I've read about 3 or 4 sermons from it. It's just
it's serious. It's just 1 chapter, but when you read it, it's power packed, trying to demonstrate.
You know the part I love about Obadiah?
Where?
Is the part where he says, even if you set your nest among the stars, there I will bring you down.
Wow. Okay, well, let me tell you something I also like about Obadiah. The parts I also like, they say, you remember God started telling Israel, Ephraim, yes, Edomite. They're telling the Edomites that unia mo chi no na me mpesa na ka ka ko boa no wo a wan ko boa no ne ho chi no wa ko jina kwantanai so wa ko jina kwantanai so ana o ka chen ko fo ne so mo se wo o mo ye de mo se wo mo ana o mo dwane no unia no ko fo mo dwane etokwa ba o mo dwane o mo pe ba bi akote no wo mo ma ba push them in.
No, but of assembly, omo amaba keke. This is what they did. Omo mu dwane no eba besia dwane afa ho say Babylon for no bantie dwane no. No man catch them say, "Oh, aha na mo fa no de mo fa ha." Enti omo fa ono nyina say na omo abo pampim wo ho. Enti o fa ho na o koru de onim say ya kire o kwan say dwane. O fa ho a na omo achew. O fa ho a na omo achew. Enti omo ye omo sa ma achew omo nyina back.
As I come back.
Come Babylon for no.
And I really with the way God was chronicling on my brother your say unia ho ache no de hia dem na akọ wia ne nioma o se to ka ba kro mo no de bika kiki ko fom nioma afa ye ko fom na ho ache no ko fom mo nioma
and Joe, the illustration I'm the man do was this my sermon I was our passage that part when accident BC wa Accra Kumasi road na obi ewu na ne nse twa na obi hye ka mu a o tia mu munyimi no na obi tu no bottom ayi ne sika na obi wia ne phone it accident na nipa anya no. That's not what the people on the road are looking at. They're looking at their benefit no benya efremu. Now them say yes krobi wo Accra Kumasi road no so e besi ne amount for that so ABC Stars a club because you see years back can be benya accident mo mu yi ntwane nyina ne drinks no echo mfi and you see the same example of diesel and petrol ato form a ehwie gu no na man for the gallons eba be so that's exactly what the book of Obadiah is telling us, but unfortunately Joe, the question is how many people come here is say and on one kind of the book of Obadiah.
Yes, it's true. There are so many we don't even know the content, but I'm telling you, it's a masterpiece. It's splendid, just brilliant.
Shall they wear Messiah the book of Obadiah? So
Obadiah.
Wow.
Yeah, I can see that with highlights. It's just
Obadiah.
Yeah, it's just verse upon verse trying to prove to you that pride precedes distraction. The moment we catch us say, what shall I say your hand time? Why you journal? Just keep at the back of your mind that say yeah, but and that is clearly what you see in chapter 4.
Yo, another thing Obadiah can and I'm person reading a show. Obadiah say, you guys say, who will come up here to fight us? Remember, say there were people who were living in the Rockies.
On the top mountains, hilly places mountains. Where they can.
I'm saying now one crown the Bepasura say, only a barbecu. When you go say, don't worry. A coin of first will make you move for no. I will do that. Yes. A honor, a ma. When you go for some say, when you go for ma a Brassier for so no bread a hand time for Arsenal. That is a clear indication of that joke.
Yeah. Chapter 5, no. What I picked up from chapter 5 is that God has a standard of weighing everybody. You see, Nakopon or Susubia or this Sunipa. Yeah. We actually say we bonnet, Subia, that measuring standard. And clearly we see Belshazzar, Abraham, and ye buy no, and started catching and say, Master, you are deficient. And it cast my mind back to the book of Revelation, chapter 11, where John, your man, Demre, imagine read a rod sort of Say uncle I saw that now uncle measure I saw that no no on measure on here na one measure edi ho baby e waja mama for no. And the idea is that God's people have to measure up. It's not enough we telling people that well we need Christo why that it's not in Christo but what also work Christo what is your standard? What is your measure? And when John measure temple no so and you are no a lot of brethren were found deficient, and clearly you import that idea back to your current dispensation and a current era of the life of Christianity you practice here. A Christosum no practice but a Christosum often who a Christian, but the away no any Christosum bread biamo. So I picked up chapter 5 and learned that Nyankopon has a measuring standard. Osusu Belshazzar, and he found him deficient. He found him wanting. And the question is, oh, measure me. What will be my stand? That's the question I think for thought. Yeah, so what we become chapter 5.
So me want to say another lesson we can pick from chapter 5, and it say you are bound to repeat the errors of your fathers and your grandfathers if you refuse to take notice of what they went through. Say, Belshazzar, na or what kind history and who their pride. Nebuchadnezzar said, a man dane say aboa edi enoma mo dia and ka onim sade na odi tu ni tirima can repeat the same mistakes obekwa akofa Nyankopon niema say ono ne mpranfo ene ne yerenom edidi mu. So I say it if we don't look at the traditions God has given us, Osman Paul Etroy in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 the verse 15 said, therefore hold fast to the traditions which you heard from us, either by our words or by our epistles. It's church no tradition. So also won't go by the tradition. I mean, say bakafo bebre na adwen say Joe, they can Onyankopon de ebe yaman we obegya tum mo de sorry and the ma chichire church of Christ will be an asom den na ye na yenko an ye say Bible. Hey, remember, say, if you forget what has happened in the past, Joe, you are bound to repeat the same mistakes. The church has a tradition. Christianity has a tradition. And if you don't go by it, Joe, you end up repeating the same mistakes of Belshazzar as he did, and eventually died out of that, Joe.
And going forward, we are still.
I think you're going to talk about chapter 6, 7, and 8, and 9. 4 chapters,
Yeah, Mamima Tofa Obidiaba. Let me read that. Eja Kevin Kwame appeared too. Also Ediaba. And he has been following. And he's reading the text. Sanya Sheshe. Sa for be kind channel. Now, so my overall lesson from chapter 1 to 9 is that God did reveal the nature and the characteristics and the unwavering status of His church, which is His kingdom, in a polycharistic manner. So do not have excuse to operate the church anyhow. Thank and God bless you all for your good work. Now go pardon me. It's you actually for the na safo obi any excuse.
I was saying that's a serious thought. Say when you go revealing at the end of it, who need excuse? Say now, Joe. When we were learning the minor prophets, there's something that me lecturer a country and I'll say God does not wounds except after He has warned. And I said, God does not wound without warning. Onyankopɔn ondwere nkrɔfoɔ wabra omo koko. God has never done that. It a baby about so Onyankopɔn punishment eba no. Na say ne warning aba severally enipa ntie. Afe no de eye ɛho asotwe no aba. It we ababaawa na wutie ya Joe. Wako obo adwaman first one. Okọ ye oba ya tu prum. Second one oba ya tu prum still wentie. Ena obehuhu niema bi okwan so yem hyehye o. Third one ena nyinsen baaye ena akoyigu ye. Fourth one ena so wentie ena akoda be obi ekunachi a oba ne pie wa ohuri fam pomam nyame nko ankie ye de acid go so. Yo ni nyina wentie a last one minim de be yo. So ya brante na odi nkrofo yiri no achi. Na wo de eche se bibi e hye skate mbia no beje number no wadi akire a onyame be ma warning ada wantie no na asotwe di akire eba. So God has revealed his word concerning how ayenye church no what am I dada. It is also won't go by that. Abraham can clearly our Bible must go by it ayo. Yakopon punishment neba you will have no excuse.
That's it. You have no excuse for that. I've said make sure so we are back. We are back, and it's good to be back. The book of Daniel and Visions, 2025. This is the first programmer here on Chariot TV, Straight Talk, the first shoot for 2025. And we are back to the making what being and we are hitting the ground running. Next week, God willing, we best schedule. Now, yes, I mean, some few comments be about Patrick K. ABC, the book of Daniel, the book of Daniel summary is there to be different from our God. There to be different from our God. That is Patrick K. ABC. So, the was a few human. Samuel Opoku, me brother. Samuel Opoku, great job, bros. Yeah, great job, bros. Sammy Michelle. Baby, I will be an uncle count. Yeah, mammy, Rita Addy or good evening, brothers. Also Edia or the Abandon. I don't know me understand. Your best schedule, Midiane Jonathan Mensa Bunsu. Your best schedule on Straight Talk, same time next week. Macro Bibia. Bye bye.